Once again, everybody, welcome to an all-new episode of the DrunkFriend podcast. As always, we're your hosts. I'm Travis, joined by Alex. Alex, how are you doing?
Alex says Alex stuff. So that's how I'm doing.
You're reading the sheet again. That's good.
I'm reading the sheet. Yeah, see, I'm learning this podcast stuff.
Yeah.
It's obey the sheet at all costs.
Yeah, I tried to take out too much of the scripted stuff. I was like, it's time to let him fly. This is, we're 12 episodes in, now he can come up with his own words, and then you just read it right off the script again. But
well, you zig and I zag, basically. That's how it works. No, I'm doing okay. Just trying to hang in there, trying to get some, stay busy with work. I got another video posting tomorrow. It just posted Wagon Paradise.
Wagon Paradise?
Yeah.
What is this, the Oregon Trail?
It's I didn't think of that. Yeah, wagon. Huh. That's very good. I appreciate that. Yeah, it's a Super Famicom game. I just wanted to express appreciation to a commenter who started quoting Ben spending most our lives living in a wagon paradise, which then devolves into the Weird Al version of Gangsta's Paradise, which is Amish Paradise, and it just made my whole day.
That's amazing.
Really funny.
Who was that commenter? Do we have him up for a shout out, or we're just giving?
I would have to pull it up.
That's fine.
Yeah,
we're just giving them general
now
praise.
I'm back to winging it, and I don't know what to do.
No, it's all good. I will say, though, it seems like our last episode with HG was pretty well received. She, trying to work on, I guess, what is it, Twitch affiliate status? Is that what it's called? Something like that, right?
Yeah.
And
yeah, she's killing it.
Seems like a few listeners of the show popped over there and said hi to her. We really appreciate that. Of course, that is a good part of what this podcast is about, is just sort of spreading the love and introducing people to some other creatives that are in the space. And so that's really cool that you guys jumped over there and said hi to her. She deserves it, man. And
she's earned it for sure.
Yeah. So we definitely appreciate that. I had a thing that I kind of wanted to bring up, in that I know, a lot of us, depending on what state you're in now, you might be getting released into the wild, but I'm hunkering down with my mask on. I'm not moving, but because of all of this, I've not been able to, go to any game stores or flea markets, the stuff that I usually do when it starts to warm up, and I really miss that. And I have this void I got to fill with retro games. It's an obsession. A lot of people have, their addictions. I have a couple. I have alcoholism, and I'm addicted to collecting games. So I got it going pretty well over here. So I, in lieu of being able to go to stores, a buddy of mine who runs a game store in a neighboring city, he had to move all of his stuff online, as a lot of stores had to do. There's no foot traffic in the store. You got to get everything up on the internet and try to push it out that way. So I want to give him a shout, because I actually ended up buying a bunch of really cool games, Alex, that I think you'll have opinions on. So I'm going to shout out a few Super Nintendo games. You just kind of give me a rough 1 or 2 word, like yay or nay, okay? I got Knights of the Round.
Yay.
Yay, okay. Somehow I didn't have F-Zero. I got F-Zero.
Yeah.
That's definitely a yay.
That's an obvious one, yeah.
Yeah. Total Carnage.
That must be the Super Smash TV follow-up. Is that a top-down shooter?
Yeah.
It's okay. I'll give it a A.
A? Give it the old Canadian A. Okay.
Give it the old A, Canadian A, or maybe a Fonzie A.
I do. We mentioned this later in the episode because we record these things out of order, but I also picked up Phalanx.
Ah, yes. Yeah, I like it. Some people say it's kind of dull, but I do like it.
Okay. What is this here? Soldiers of Fortune.
Very good. Yeah, that's a good game. 2-player too. So that's 2-player co-op.
Right on. Strike Force Gunner.
It's a shoot 'em up, top-down, vertical, and I think that game is also 2-player. So that's another solid game. If you play through that one, the level 6 music in that is some of the strangest music I've ever heard in a video game. So
awesome.
If you go through that one, you got something to look forward to, because it sounds like it's hard to describe, but yeah, you're in for a treat if you get to level 6, because it's like, what happened to my Super Nintendo? Yeah, it's very strange.
Good deal. Okay, a couple more here. I'm switching gears to Genesis, so there's a good chance Maybe you're less familiar, but I'm not real certain. Final Zone.
I have not played it.
Okay,
Wait, no, Final Zone. No, I'm thinking of Fantasy Zone.
Yeah, it's sort of a mech. It's a mech game, top-down mech game. I played a touch of it. It's actually kind of fun, as far as I could tell. And Rambo 3.
Have not played it.
Have not played it. Okay, well, that's fun. I just released a video, actually today, on Rambo on the NES. Of course, this recording on Wednesday will come out on Friday. And I mentioned that Rambo 3. I played a touch of it. It seems okay. I mean, it's better than the NES game. I can say that with full confidence.
The NES game is just not good. It's just no way around it. I do not envy. I enjoyed your video, but I did not envy your experience.
No, it had its moments, none of them good. So in light of that, I wanted to share with listeners of this podcast that the website that I got those games from, supergamestation.com, is going to do a little bit of a DrunkFriend promo. If you are a listener of the show, if you go to that website and buy some games, I will say still uploading a lot of the store on there. So if you click on a console and it's not there, it's because it's a one-man operation and it takes a long time to enter hundreds of games into the system. You can use DRUNK5, DRUNK5, at checkout for 5% off and free shipping for the month of June. So how cool is that?
It's really cool.
Yeah.
And that's supergamestation.com is all one word. There's no dash, no anything. It's just supergamestation.com. DRUNK5, 5% off, free shipping for the month of June.
That's right. And that's not even like a planned ad. That's just like literally something that just kind of happened because I was like, hey, man, I'm just trying to help out your store. I just bought a bunch of games from you. What can I do? And so there's that. So we'll move on from that into some listener emails.
Oh, we do want to shout out our friend Michelle. We just got another reply from her. If you listen to the last episode, she replied with some very nice drink recipes that we're going to be trying. And with the yellow chartreuse, the wildly expensive yellow chartreuse. So we'll thank you, Michelle. We'll keep in touch.
Yeah, she only communicates in drink recipes, so that's which is good.
It's a little weird, but it's a little very very strange. But I was being a drunk, I was able to piece together what she was saying.
That's right. And speaking of drunk, again, I'm going to allude to something that happens later in this show, which maybe people can that'll help get them excited for it. I mistakenly said that the beer that I'm drinking contains no wheat, and as I fidgeted with the bottle throughout that interview that we had, I found that it says contains wheat. So disregard that later moment in the episode where I declare otherwise. Yes. Okay, here's an email from Chris. He says, hey, y'all, greetings from Kansas City. I'm loving the podcast. It gives me something great to listen to at work on Friday morning while driving. I've been collecting retro games for several years now. Growing up, I only had a Sega Genesis, and now that I'm older, I've fallen in love with the Super Nintendo so much that I imported a CIB, of course, complete in box, Super Famicom. That's pretty awesome. I've particularly been loving collecting for the Super Famicom, and these SNES Drunk episodes about English-friendly games help me so much, since I can't read Japanese. Me neither. So my question is, what is your personal favorite or favorites Super Famicom game that can be played without an English patch? My favorite is actually Sanrio World Smash Ball. I absolutely love playing it versus friends while drinking. P.S. I'm drinking a PBR. Cheers. So cheers to you, Chris. This is a question, honestly, more for you, Alex. I'm not as versed in this, but what do you got for this guy?
Well, Sanrio World Smash Ball is a really good start. That game's awesome. I love the sound design in that game because it's basically just Pong, but with Hello Kitty characters. So it's a very, very, very simple game, but it's fun because it's got a lot of character, and it's got the sprite animation's really good, and the sound design, it's so satisfying when you smack the weird disc-looking thing back and forth to each other. It's a little bit like Windjammers, I guess, more than Pong. And it's you break the blocks on the other goal, and I think it's best of 5. Okay. Or whoever gets to 3 first to win each match. So that's a really good game. I really like that game. But my favorites for Super Famicom that are English friendly, which is, it's weird, I talked about this later in the podcast, but they're the Great Battle games that are, in particular, Great Battle 4 and 5, because they're just run to the right, shoot stuff. You know, real simple.
Yeah.
The fifth game even has Wild Guns style gameplay where it's over the shoulder shooting gallery stuff. So those would be my picks.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, if I have to have some input here from the NES side of things, I know I'm sort of I occasionally will include a Famicom game on the channel. I want to do more. I'm actually that's kind of inspired by you, Alex. I think it's really cool to get some of those games that, you know, obviously they're just it's so rare to get any information about, to see anywhere in any of that stuff. So highlighting those and discovering those has sort of been a side hobby. I've discovered 3 so far that I really enjoy that don't require any Japanese abilities or knowing any Japanese to be able to play them. And those are Goonies, the first Goonies that never came to the U.S. It's just a fun, regular old platformer. I did a video on it just recently. Super pick up and play. It's a lot of fun. Another one is Palometes 2. If you liked the original Palometes, which was here in the United States on the NES, Palometes 2 was only in Japan. It's a little bit different, but if you liked Palometes 1, you'll really enjoy Palometes 2, just like a puzzle game. And the third one would be Babel. It's I don't know how many people would be familiar with Solomon's Key or Fire and Ice. Those are 2 puzzle platformers for the NES. This is sort of a carryover of that. Maybe not as deep as those 2, but definitely playable and pretty addictive. A lot of fun. So that would be my input.
Yeah, I haven't played those last 2. I haven't even heard of them. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah. All right. So moving on, I guess.
Am I on the next one here from Captain Drachma?
That's cool that we got an email from a captain. Strange.
A real captain.
That's
and it's
cool.
not Captain Novelin.
Your favorite.
My favorite, yeah. Hey guys, love the podcast while listening to your most recent show with Hungry Gorilla. God, that always trips me up. Gorilla. She had still like weeks later. She had mentioned how she liked Link's Awakening a lot more than A Link to the Past. Link's Awakening is my favorite game of all time, and it got me thinking about how I used to steal my dad's heavy-duty Maglite flashlight to play the game in bed when I was little, when I was supposed to be sleeping. I would stick the flashlight in between my head and shoulder and prop it up so I could see the Game Boy. Now that's clever. Do you guys have any memories of going to great lengths to play games when you weren't supposed to or otherwise? Another example I can think of off the top of my head is when Happy Console Gamer, you guys should bring him on the show, and we would love to, told a story about how he skipped school and played Thunder Force 2 in his closet on a black and white TV so his parents wouldn't see him if they happened to come home. I'd love to hear your responses. Thanks for all the hard work you guys put into this podcast.
Nice.
What do you got?
I do remember, I don't know if this is the story I should tell, but I do remember there was a time that my dad, from a buddy at work, my dad was just always stealing things from a buddy at work for us. Like, that's how we got HBO. Just my dad knew a guy at work that could get it. You know, like, he had, like, codes that manipulated the satellite to get TV for us and cable. So I think my dad just stole a lot. Like, he was a pirate before the internet, you know? So
sounds like Kramer's friend, Bob Sacamano, like on Seinfeld.
Yeah, that was my dad.
My friend Bob Sacamano can get us blah, 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 blah. That's great. I love it.
Pretty much, yeah. And I'm just kind of coming into realizing this as I'm talking, that my dad was definitely just a pirate before the internet. But he also had a buddy that he's like, hey, man, I got like every computer game ever. And this is like in 1993. So he probably had every computer game that was just shovelware, like in the 90s. And there was one called Strip Poker, and I was like, wow, dude, that's cool. And so I saw it, like, it's a list. It's just a running list of like 1,800 games. Like, my dad probably didn't even know it was on there, but I saw it, and I was like, all right, when he goes to bed, I'm gonna go out in the garage, fire this up, see if I can, play this. And I remember starting the game, and it was so slow. It was just like churn, just trying to like get the images to show up. That at some point my dad came in. He was like, "What are you playing?" And I was like, it's just poker." And he's like, "God, it looks slow." And he just walked out. And I don't even think any ladies loaded. I don't think I got to a part that was interesting for a 13-year-old boy. I just remember him catching me being like, yeah, just poker, dude. It's no big deal. And because the game was so
That's
slow, it
fantastic.
saved me from embarrassment because nothing was on the screen.
People younger than us don't know the struggles of, there was the slow loading from a 14.4 modem. There was scramble vision. You had cable. You put the TV on channel 2, and then you'd flip around. That's actually how I saw. Not to bring 90s wrestling into this again, but that's actually how I was desperate to see 97 Survivor Series, because I was reading online about all the drama backstage, and I really needed to see what happened, but my dad wouldn't spring he's like, I'm done with wrestling. Like, he wasn't going to spring for the pay-per-view. So I put the TV on channel 2 and flipped to channel, 55 on the cable box or whatever. And I was able to, I was somehow even more confused based on the finish, because that was the famous Montreal screw job. And I went online what the heck did I just see? I managed to catch Brett doing the WCW thing, and I'm like, is this real? Is my TV tricking me?
Yeah.
But anyway, getting way off track here. I don't really have any sort of thing. I guess all I really did was just kind of the same thing every other kid did, was just bring your Game Boy to school.
Yeah.
And play during class, or play games on your TI-81 calculator, like Drug Wars, which is my favorite, which was like an RPG kind of, with drug management, doing deals and stuff like that. It was a fun game. I will say, this wasn't video games, but I had a job when I was a teenager. It was the easiest job in the world. I was very, very lucky to have it. I was a warming house attendant. I would sit in just to explain, because this is probably just a Minnesota thing, or at least a cold weather area thing. We have a lot of outdoor rinks and public parks that are, big truck comes by, sprays it down with water, smooth it out, and then they put a trailer next to it so people can change from their boots or their shoes to their skates, and they walk to the rink and skate, or if they need a breather from after playing 3-on-3 or whatever. I was the guy in there. I'd basically just throw a Band-Aid or at somebody if they managed to hurt themselves or something like that. So one time I had to work, and I worked, I think, in 6-hour shifts, I want to say. And I had to work a Sunday, and there was a Vikings playoff game. This would have been 99, because it was when they played the Rams, and that was the Kurt Warner Greatest Show on Turf Rams.
Yeah.
And the Vikings had Jeff George and,
Sorry, that made
and
me
Randy Moss and a prayer. And I was so desperate to watch this, because I was so nervous for the game. I brought over this old black and white TV that my friend Gretchen had. That she just gave it to me. It's like, I don't want this anymore. I was like, okay, I'll take it. And I hauled it over there. It was only about an 8-inch screen. I just carried it over there, plugged it in, draped a blanket over it, and turned the sound down, and just kind of watched it on the chair next to me. And it was, the Vikings got
That's awesome.
blown out pretty badly. But yeah,
You're
I was
tailgating at work. That's smart.
I was just desperate. I have to watch. And I wish I didn't. So.
Speaking of playing games you're not supposed to, and I guess maybe to close this out, I do remember in grad school there was that game. Was it Spore? It just came out.
Yes.
It was supposed to be awesome. You could grow a
the demo was amazing
into a monster or whatever. And I remember playing that through class, just because that was the time where I think, I don't know, maybe it was 2008, 2009, where bringing your own laptop to class was just sort of a norm at that point. And I just hid behind my screen and just pretended to pay attention and just plugged around in Spore. And
nice.
I don't have any fond memories of that game other than it got me out of paying attention to boring ass class for hours on end. So
I remember when the demo of that game came out and people were just blown away.
Mm-hmm.
I remember when the fight started after I think it was Will Wright showing it to an auditorium or something, and he put the Star Trek battle theme. It just cracked up. I just thought it was just please tell me that's gonna actually be in the game. That would be so hilarious. But alas, the finished product was much different than the than what the demo was. But
Certainly.
now that you mention it, speaking of playing games at school, this doesn't even really count though as getting away with it because our teacher just didn't care. We had I think I've talked about this. We had a computer essentials teacher that was like 80 years old and had a bad cough and just did not care about, teaching anything. Just follow the book.
Computer essentials, but they're 80 years old?
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm not being ageist or anything, but jeez.
I don't think this guy knew anything, to be honest with you. He's just like, all right, just start from page 20 and just do whatever. And people were just like openly playing Blood, Grand Theft Auto, Carmageddon was another popular one. And that's when I was talking about this in the Discord chat. I first discovered ZSNES and Nesticle,
right?
The emulators, and that's when I found stuff like Seiken Densetsu 3, and I was like, holy crap, somebody went through the trouble to translate this, and I was just gobsmacked. And there was Final Fantasy V, there was there was another one, Bahamut Lagoon was the other big RPG. And I was just like, how is this possible? There's a whole universe of games I had no idea existed. I sounded like Tim Kirkchin when he gets excited. His voice is cracking, and I have really fond memories. But again, I don't think that counts to answer the question because our teacher did not care
right.
at all. We were just openly playing freaking Grand Theft Auto.
There's definitely no consequence. Yeah.
Yeah, those are good memories though.
Yeah, I don't know if there was any consequence to mine either, but.
It's still a funny story.
Still fun, yeah. But if my dad had found out, thinking back on it, he might have just been like, "What game is that?" That might have been his retort. Which one are you playing? And it would be cool to have Johnny, Happy Console Gamer on. He's a fun guy, so maybe eventually we'll have to see. But thank you, Captain Druckmann. That was a good question.
Yeah, thank you. Good stuff.
All right, so coming up, who do we have as a guest today?
We've got Mr. SuperDerek. I guess he's technically SuperDerek RPGs. And I don't know if that's his full name or just if that's just what's on his passport or his driver's license.
That's on the birth certificate. His mother named him Super.
He's been around since 2013. We actually collaborated way back then in 2014. We talk about that a bit. He talks about just all the planning that went into his channel. All the games he's played, and he's a great guy. He's always been a really solid dude. He's very easy to talk to, and he's got, like you said to start, the smoothest voice. So
back to back, man, we're getting that silky smooth voice
back.
club. Yeah,
it's like we're gonna have to find. It's too obscure a reference probably, but Roman Mars from the 99% Invisible podcast.
I sometimes feel like all your references are too obscure, and that's okay.
But that guy's voice is like, whoa, like this is like, dang, like this is Roman Mars telling you to Blue Apron. It's like that guy's gonna sell me on Blue Apron one of these days if I listen to too much of that podcast. But SuperDerek is a really solid guy. You'll really enjoy listening to him. He's a good dude.
All right, coming up next, SuperDerek. Derek, thanks so much for joining us, man. How are you doing? And if I may ask, what are you drinking?
I'm doing really well, thanks for asking. And I'm drinking rum with a splash of Coke.
That's just
very nice.
That's classic. It's just classic.
Yeah, is it regular Coke or like vanilla Coke or?
No, it's zero sugar.
Oh,
Coke.
Zero sugar. Right on. Yeah, that's about the only Coke I can drink. Is that zero sugar stuff? Yeah. Right.
You can tell we're a bunch of gaming podcasters in advanced age. You're like, is you doing the Diet Coke now? Yeah, me too, man. Really had to cut down on the sugar. Still doing a lot of bourbon though. But
some say you can gauge the age of a gamer based on the rings of Diet Coke found within the skin cell layers.
Nice.
That's great.
Well, that's
mine
great
would
to hear.
be probably Mountain Dew Code Red. I think it would be, or Livewire. I don't even know if they still make that stuff, but it would be that stuff, that crap back in like, I don't know, 99, 2000, back in those days. Ugh.
Yeah. Well, thinking about that now, it's kind of bluck, but I miss those days of just what's Mountain Dew going to do next? Are they going to go for the whole crayon box?
Yeah, they're gonna go with finally they're gonna make a Dorito flavored Mountain Dew just to make everyone's world collide.
You know,
wow.
if you eat your Taco Bell fast enough with the Baja Blast, sometimes you get a Dorito flavored sip. So anyway, yeah, that's great to hear, man. I'm glad you're doing well. I know all things considered, it's crazy out there, but happy to hear you're doing fine. Our listeners are going to notice that 2 episodes in a row, we've managed to have some of the silkiest and smoothest sounding voices in the community on, and that's just totally by coincidence. And I asked HG, Hungry Gorilla, this last time, do you get complimented on your Barry White tones every day in everyday life as much as you do on the internet?
In fact, during my work, I do a lot of phone support and stuff, and now that I work from home and people get to experience the sound of my good studio microphone, you'd be surprised. I've gotten off of conference calls and been asked about where they can find me on podcasts or whatever.
That's awesome. Yeah, do you is it a lot of the mic? Does that bring out the bass tones, or you just a bassy guy?
I think it's got a lot to do with actually my secret is my DBX 286A vocal processor, that and a microphone. I like just any old microphone ought to be fine. It's just about microphone placement and how you talk to it.
There you go, man.
Talk to it.
You should teach a webinar.
Yeah, you gotta get close to the microphone and just really chew on the microphone, and you get that what they call a proximity effect, and it just gives you that radio announcer quality sound.
Absolutely.
That little extra bass. But outside of that, I don't know. Nobody's ever told me that I've got a very bassy voice. I don't know.
Just got to make friends with the mic, as Bob Ross would say. Just give it a little space, give it a little water. Okay, maybe not water. That'd probably be bad, lead to bad things. But, just give it a little space, make friends with it.
Make it a happy little microphone.
A happy little microphone, yes, of course.
Nice.
Hey, Derek, I wanted to bring this up because it was in 2014 when we did that Christmas collaboration, if you remember that.
I do remember that.
Yeah, with Dubious Gaming was the other guy. There was also was Game versus Game in that.
Yeah. Game versus Game was in there. Benevolent Dick NES was there.
Oh yeah, I remember that guy. I haven't heard from that guy in a long time.
There was a guy, Immersed Gamer, who was also a part of it, but I don't think he's active anymore, unfortunately. But
okay.
Oh yeah, some deep cuts.
Do you remember what game you got for that? And what game did you give? Because what we did is we just, it was kind of like a random drawing. Because I got, I think I got Game versus Game, and I sent him, I didn't want to give him, I wanted to send him something really bad, like Captain Novelin or something like that. But I settled for the Super Nintendo port of Thunder Force, called Thunder Spirits. Because I thought it would be cool. Actually, I sent him both Thunder Force 3 and Thunder Spirits, I think. And he actually used them for an episode, which was really cool. But do you remember which game you got?
Oh, I know that I drew Benevolent Dick NES as my Secret Santa. So I knew that he was not very much a fan of Super Mario Brothers 3, based on a prior video of his. So just to kind of play a little bit of a friendly joke, I got him a big old Super Mario Brothers 3 poster and and a copy of The Wizard.
Icing on the cake there.
Good touch.
Yeah.
Nice.
I mean, it was a lot of fun, but
yeah. God, I can't believe that was almost 6 years ago. That's freaking crazy.
I know. Time flies, man.
Yeah. I was in my crappy old apartment when I first moved to Albuquerque. When I see the video I made for the review, one of the games I got from Dubious Gaming, he gave me Let's Ride Dancer or something like that, and it's an RPG where you take care of a horse.
I think I remember that.
Yeah, and I watched the video. I actually posted it on my community page for YouTube, and it's I had like quarantine hair before quarantine hair was cool. I looked absolutely terrible. Like my hair was, I don't know what I was doing with my hair. And the game is just hilarious because it's made for little kids, specifically little girls. So I'm playing this and it's one of the most confusing interfaces ever. I'm trying to get the stupid horse to eat hay. It won't do it. It won't drink the water. I finally get out to ride it around, and that's all you do is just ride it around your ranch, and then you go back inside and go to sleep.
Oh my gosh. Well, and what was the name of it again?
It's called like Let's Ride Dreamer or something like that. The Dancer.
That's crazy because I believe that I've recently heard of a more recent game, maybe in that same franchise, on Nintendo Switch. So I think they're still going. I think they are. And I think Wood from Beat 'em Ups actually made a couple of videos about it. I could be mistaken.
It had to have been spurned by the huge success of my video.
Absolutely.
I'm sure. Yeah, it's brought awareness.
You're an influencer, man. You got that Let's Ride franchise, and that community has a lot to thank you for.
Jeez.
That's awesome. Yeah, did they still do whatever this thing was? Was it just like a secret Santa among a few YouTubers, then you swapped games and did a review of the one you got? Was that?
Yeah, that was basically sort of the idea. I wanted to try to help establish more of like a friendly kind of community among a bunch of the people that I watched and really appreciated as like a burgeoning beginning YouTuber. And I had a blast doing that and trying to kind of get people to know each other. And I think I did one other Christmas sort of series like that, but that I haven't done that for a while, and I don't know why.
I wouldn't mind joining again.
Maybe it ought to make a comeback.
It could be, yeah. I would be for it, 100%. What about you, Trav?
Yeah, that sounds fun. I mean, why not?
But I suppose it would have to be an NES game in your case, though.
Yeah, I do not deviate. I will not do it. No, it's fine. Alex, we forgot to say what, in fact, we were drinking. What are you slurping on? You on the old arrogant bastard for the 12th episode in a row?
I'm pretty sick of that stuff. There is, I don't know if they're local, but there's a beer here called Monks, and they have all sorts of different stuff. They have right now it's the Dark Ale, which is tremendous. I really like their stuff. What about you?
I think the thing I'm drinking is semi-local, but I think they got bought out. So maybe they're not as local anymore, but it's out of Lexington, Virginia, which is close to me. Devil's Backbone. It might be pretty widely known. They have this summer pack that was pretty sweet. I mean, it was a lot of like fruity, florally beers that I've been trying to twist my own arm to get into because it's been hot. I can't just be sitting outside sipping on, a porter, sweating. So this one's called a Loved by the Sun Peach Mango Beer, and I gotta say, it's pretty refreshing.
Is it
pretty
like
good.
Wheat?
Actually, I don't think so.
Oh, very nice. Okay, that's cool. I can't drink wheat beers. Most of those like fruit beers like that are some sort of wheat, and I can't do it.
It's usually instant headache for those, right?
Yeah, stomach doesn't like it, head doesn't it. Yeah, just not a thing, I guess.
Cool.
Anyway.
Well, we've updated the folks on the particular beverage we're taking for this episode. Yeah,
thank you.
Got to do it.
I completely forgot.
So, Derek, thinking about your channel, it's been around a while. You've done a good number of really awesome games, a lot of big RPGs, obviously, and those are long. Do you stem to stern each one before doing a review or a video on it, or do you have multiple ones going at once, maybe in different phases for the sake of your production and like staying on schedule with videos and that kind of thing?
No, I do. I just play them one at a time because I don't think I could honestly juggle more than one at a time. So what I generally do is I'll just play through the game that I'm about to review and get to the end and finish it. I'll play it over on Twitch and stuff, and then once that's done, I'll move on to the next. And it really just helps me focus on the game because I want to experience it, not all kind of broken up. I'd like to be able to kind of get immersed into the game and experience it the way a non-YouTuber, the way a non-YouTuber would experience this, right? Because I feel like a lot of people do only play one at a time, especially RPGs, because they're confusing as heck. I mean, it's notorious for, like, whenever you put one down for a couple of weeks and you come back to it, it's a game of what the heck was I doing?
Great
right?
point. Yep. That's
So,
I can totally identify with that. It's almost like reading a book. Like if you kind of, you can't do more than one, or at least I can't. Some people can. Like my dad is like, he's reading like 3-4 books at once. I don't know how he does that, but if I lose my place in a book, or I just forget about reading it for a couple weeks, I got to start from the beginning again, because it's like,
yeah, I feel the exact same way. Like,
yeah.
if I stopped watching a movie 15 minutes in and then watched the first 15 minutes of a different movie and then went back, I just I don't know how people can manage that.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting you mentioned that you want to play it like a non-YouTuber, and of course you mean like non-overly analytical. You actually just want to enjoy it and not try to record footage of this part and jump to this part and skip around to do things. So I think that's actually really neat. And I was curious about that because your videos and just, I mean, I can't even begin to imagine the amount of specific knowledge you have in your brain about like story arcs and characters and combat systems and maps from all the RPGs you've played. So given that, is a lot of it starting to run together when you recall back on certain games?
Some of it runs together, that which remains. Some of it just disappears, which is terrible. But at the same time, I wish I could make myself forget some things about other games, like Chrono Trigger, for instance. I wish I could make myself forget Chrono Trigger so I could go back and play it again fresh. But no, I feel like a lot of gosh, it's kind of crazy how some things just sort of form like this matrix, this web of connections between various games and how they do things. It's it's overwhelming sometimes.
It's a lot of stories, a lot of dialogue, a lot of battle systems, a lot of turn-based, and every game is different. Well, some games like Luffy are just like, hey, here's Dragon Quest with a different story, basically, but still, it's mostly,
Oh man, I've actually been playing back through Lufia in the Fortress of Doom lately.
Really?
And yeah, I've been playing through it on. So I don't want to talk too much about, like, I don't want to promote myself, but I have this thing on Twitch where I play through 3 games at the same time.
I was going to ask you about that. Yeah, it's some sort of gauntlet, and the audience tells you when and where to switch games? What is that?
Yeah, basically. So I play through 3 classic RPGs at the same time, preferably ones that I've already played through. Otherwise, it'd be completely unmanageable.
Yeah.
But how it works is when I'm playing through these, I have it set up so that this has to be emulated, by the way. So what I have is a chatbot that runs on my machine that monitors the chat, and then every time anybody subscribes to the channel or cheers, it triggers an event that runs a few macros that basically says it to save the state, change the game, load the last save state, and then it just changes like that. Like, no matter what I'm doing, I have to react to however it changes.
You could be in the middle of like a battle, trying to navigate something, and then now you're in Illusion of Gaia, wandering around that town. And
yes,
wow, that is ambitious.
It's crazy because man, chat definitely plays a big role over my success during these times. They've set it up for me on a couple of occasions to where I've been in 3 different games playing 3 different boss fights, and then and then they start changing the game like constant, and it is impossible to keep up with.
So what are the games? You said Lufia is one?
So right now, it's Lufia and the Fortress of Doom. Another is Breath of Fire and Terranigma.
Okay.
Nice.
So it's it's a odd mix. It started off with 2 other games, Breath of Fire and Chrono Trigger. Those finished off really easy because I already remembered those very well in my mind. But then I remember Breath of Fire a little less, and that's the one that's been in there the longest. And trying to navigate my way through that has been crazy. But then most recently, people have voted in Lufia as a replacement, and then also Terranigma. So I'm torn. Like they have me playing Terranigma. I know that they must love me, but then they make me play through Lufia, and it's just what's
It's old. It shows its age.
So is that how it works? So if you do beat one game, then another one gets voted in, and the cycle just keeps spinning that way?
Yeah, exactly. It's a lot of
Nice.
fun,
Okay.
and it kind of, in a way, kind of gamifies that whole concept of what the heck was I just doing?
Oh yeah,
It's a game
yeah.
within a game, yeah.
Yeah, it's got its own meta.
The Terranigma one must be really tough because that's an action RPG, the real-time combat, and there's some really tough boss fights. I'm thinking of
yeah.
what is her name, like
Bloody
Sister
Mary.
Mary or something, like, or Bloody Mary, yeah.
Yep.
Oh my god, I don't know how many times I died on that. That was just ridiculous.
Well, because I've done a couple of like 24-hour marathons of finishing, because I'm not a speedrunner. I know a speedrunner could probably finish Terranigma in like 30 minutes or something, but I'm not. and I've done like 24-hour runs of Terranigma where I just, start one day, play through the whole game normally, and then end it the next, and I know that, and until you're at a certain level, character progression wise, you cannot beat Bloody Mary because you just do like 1 or 2 damage. It's definitely all about that grind.
Yep. For sure. So, you started out as regular old SuperDerek before altering your channel a little bit to SuperDerek RPGs. You've always been an RPG videos guy from day one with your first video, but you did occasionally do stuff like, I think Mystical Ninja for N64 was one.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any chance you'll go back to reviewing games from other genres, or is this like your lane and you're pretty much set there?
So my channel started off as SuperDerek RPGs, and I have this show called The Game Collection because I wanted my show to be about game collecting. So I used to include information about like how much it costs to collect these things, and I even did like a Sega retrospective. But after a while, I only wanted to end up reviewing RPGs, and so I just kind of gravitated toward that, which is why eventually I was just like, I think I'm just gonna go on all in with RPGs.
Cool.
And we'll see what happens. But even Mystical Ninja starring Goemon, I'd say is still kind of on the spectrum of RPG-ness. There's what is and what isn't an RPG at this point is really just a massive conversation that we probably
don't
shouldn't
get me started on Link to the Past. Ugh.
Yeah, we're not going to get started on that because
Trav's already sick of me blathering about that one.
but I think that RPG-ness is a spectrum, and it ranges from everything like from the far RPG end of LARPing all the way to maybe beat 'em ups. Like I feel like that's the spectrum along which there's a progression from like there's LARPing, then D&D, and then there's actual like Western RPGs, and then there's maybe JRPGs, and then action RPGs, and then action adventure games, and then beat 'em ups. And then anything beyond that is probably so far removed from the RPG realm that it no longer really matters.
Yeah. The thing is though, is that like, I'm sorry to bring this up again, Trav, but I think you're doing a game like to use Link to the Past as an example, I think you're doing that game a disservice, because if you call it an RPG, is it on the spectrum? Yeah, because you're collecting heart pieces and you're improving your character, but it's got way more in common with the adventure genre than the RPG genre. So you would call it an adventure game, at least I would.
I would call it action adventure because in my mind I have regular adventures tied to things more like Shadow of Destiny, which is kind of like point and click adventure, but yeah,
like the old Sierra games and stuff like that. Yeah.
But yeah, I think that it has more in common with like Alundra, which is also an action adventure game.
Yeah, there's probably no domain that's more hotly contested regard to like where genre lines are than gaming. Maybe metal music. That might be the one where like, no, this is deep core math grind, but you take loose horse grind music over there. It's like it kind of sounds the same to me. I'm not versed in it, but I do think it's interesting to hear people try to draw lines around the games. I'm not saying that it's a silly thing to do, but it is important to do in a lot of ways, but I do find that interesting.
I think that the problem is that people mistake the genres should be prescriptive rather than descriptive, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that saying that this game is an RPG should limit it to just being
Yeah.
an RPG. Like
That's
it's
a good
it's
point.
just how language works. This is an efficient way to say basically what you should expect from this game.
Yes.
Exactly.
And yeah, so if I don't understand the big kerfuffle of the
The
about
hubbub.
yeah, what's all the hubbub about
Yeah.
with all that? Yeah.
Well, getting back to your channel here for a bit, your show has always had this like TV-like production quality to it from the very first episode, which, by the way, is almost 7 years ago. How did you learn to make your show so polished with like the intro, and you got the black and orange color scheme? You always had the logo. Did you like just kind of learn on your own? Did you go to school for that kind of stuff? Or?
Well, that's that. Okay, well, I've always been what I would say is a self-described artist of anything. Especially loved graphic design, especially all throughout like grade school, middle school, high school, and I took all of the electives that I could. Once I got out of high school, I went to college for video game design because that's what I wanted to be. Guess how that turned out. and after a while, I just realized I was doing this tech support job that was just soul degrading, just mind numbing, and it's just, it was just a terrible experience, and I needed a creative outlet, and I decided that the thing that would marry my two loves of RPGs and tech would probably be to harness my talents of art to try to, make this all-encompassing thing. And I spent probably 2 or 3 months leading up to the creation of my YouTube channel just deciding on
Really?
all kinds of branding, like what did I want to name myself? Oh yeah.
That's
SuperDerek
crazy.
wasn't always SuperDerek. It probably went through several iterations and logo designs, and even then I didn't realize it was just going to be an RPG channel. Otherwise, my branding would be completely better.
Yeah.
But at this point, I'm stuck with it.
Well, I'm stuck with SNES Drunk. I think you did a much better job planning than I did. Whereas I was just like, I gotta think of something. I've told this before, but I was almost SNES Dog. And I was going to have my dog be the one that I was going to make it look like he was the one that was talking. But I thought that was too hokey and gimmicky. I was just like, I don't want to put poor Clyde through that. So I decided on SNES Drunk, and I was like, yeah, that works, because then I can do a Barney Gumble voice at the beginning and do a really short intro. Bang, bing, bang, boom, done. It took like 15 minutes of thought. Whereas you're over here like weeks and weeks. That's really cool, though. You really put a lot of thought into it, and it's definitely paid off because one thing about your channel is that it has a real sense of identity without it being like overbearing. You're not one of those like smash that subscribe button guy, all those YouTube cliches at this point. Did you have any influences and inspiration that went into your channel?
Oh, all of the inspirations, all of them. Yeah, so the content that I ended up consuming the most of around that time was probably watching all of the retrospectives by GameTrailers.com. If you remember
yeah. That's a throwback.
Oh yeah, they were some of my biggest inspirations. That was how I wanted to deliver my lines. Was hugely inspired by man, I can't remember his name right now, but right now I think he's over at Easy Allies on YouTube. But,
Brandon Jones?
Yes, I think. Yeah. Oh man, just legendary in his voiceover delivery.
Absolutely.
And aside from him, I was also hugely inspired by I think Game Theory. Even at the time, they were still just starting up. But I think you can definitely find a few old videos of mine where in order to find my style, I was mimicking some of my inspirations. Also, Mark from Classic Game Room. He was massive at the time.
Yeah,
and was a huge inspiration as well. Gosh, there were so many people that helped shape who I wanted to be. Cool. And in the end, I think playing around by imitating other styles helped me find my style over time.
I do remember the one early video you did. You went a little off script with your Brainlord video. I think where you were like, this game, you treated it almost like a horror video where you're like, this game was put on Earth to terrorize people, and it's yeah, that's I can kind of get behind that because the puzzles in that game are insane and will frustrate you for
maddening.
Sure. Yeah,
that black maze that you had to navigate in the dark,
and you can't see
the walls. You have to use, and they had moving floors, and the only way you know that is if you had your fairies out, because they would drift off to the side when you stood still. Oh my god, what did they do?
Not that was an Enix game, right? Like that's not their best.
It was made by Produce and was published by Enix.
Okay. Yeah.
So Produce is also known for their work in Seventh Saga, which has a very similar art style with like the top-down view where they tried to like interpret like, oh, the shoulders must be really big because it's closer to the camera, right? So it's that's Produce. They're so I don't know what else they made, but yeah, that design idea, that design philosophy, I think made them both distinct and also a huge turnoff.
Seventh Saga is one of those games that if it were remade today but keep the same style and keep like make sure it's limited to just 7 players and you had them all playing at the same time, like a kind of like a limited inbox like MMORPG kind of a thing, I think that could work as long as you use the Japanese version and not the horribly difficult American version, which is just beyond broken.
Wait, they did that in the publishers in America made it worse?
I think it was a mistake. But yeah, that's something I learned over the years that you can't like once you get to the point where you have to fight, I think it's the healer, the priest guy, you can't kill him because he keeps healing over and over. He barely even does any attacks. He just keeps healing himself. And it's like, well, I've soft locked myself here. I have to start over. Like there's no beating this guy. Yeah, that doesn't happen in the Japanese version. It's much more balanced. By the way, I looked it up. Produce did the Super Bomberman games. I had no idea. I thought that was just a Hudson Soft thing. But they did Super Bomberman and Super Bomberman 2. Huh, I'll be damned.
Interesting. Speaking of course, RPGs and your videos, and because you're fluent, obviously, in the world of RPGs, I mean, you're essentially as close as you can get to an expert at this point. Is there one game out there not enough people know about that deserves more attention, in your opinion?
Oh, that's tough. I trust me, there are people who have played far more RPGs than I have, and I believe one of your previous guests, Daria, is probably one of them. In fact,
yes.
And she has just such a massive knowledge of RPGs, and gosh, I think that probably the game that surprised me the most, because I just not heard enough about it leading into my playthrough, was probably Grandia. On PlayStation 1. That game just took me by complete surprise. Aside from that, maybe I think Terranigma is also one of those games that just has a special spot in my heart, because it's one of the ones that I just fell in love with early on, but it also just never came out in the West, and as a result, and when I say the West, it never came out in the States. It got a Western release in Europe and Australia, but here in the States, it just you'd be surprised how many people still don't have any idea that it exists, and it's, to me, the pinnacle of action RPGs during the 16-bit era, surpassing even Seiken Densetsu 3 or Trials of Mana.
Yeah, it's I'm still a bit bitter that when it came to release the Super Nintendo Classic, they didn't put that on there because it's already in English.
Yeah,
just
it would have been prime for that.
Yeah, it would have been a perfect way to introduce it to a brand new audience, and it would give I understand, like, okay, we want Star Fox 2 to be the main hook of this and blah blah blah, but I mean, you can attract two different audiences, completely different. You get the Nintendo franchise people that are like, yay, Star Fox, and then you can get like, hey, here's this game that never came out in the US, and I just feel that was like a dumb idea. Stupid Nintendo. Come on.
Yeah, well, I think it's probably not entirely Nintendo's fault, because what I've learned over the years about Quintet, the creators of
True.
the Soul Blazer trilogy, is that
Yeah.
they're kind of defunct, more or less. I mean,
Yeah.
I think they still exist as their shadow company, Shade. See what they did there. So they still exist as this company that works on other games, but they don't get credit for those. That's why it makes them a shadow company. And they've been active as of like at least 2012, but I don't know about anything since then. But I believe they would maybe still hold the rights to those games. But
Yeah.
even then, it's still sort of like this weird gray area because they're not technically Quintet.
Yeah.
So I don't even know who owns it.
Yeah, that's one of those unsolvable mazes there. I remember when I was working on the video for Hagane, which was made by Hudson Soft, and they got bought out like in 2012, 2011, something like that, by Konami Entertainment, and I'm trying to find out like sales figures. I'm on this wild goose chase. Like, I'm trying to find out like, was Hagane sold in stores or was it just available on Blockbuster? And I'm like 99% sure it's not a Blockbuster thing. It was sold in stores like any other game. But I wanted to see if I could get to the root. And everybody's like, oh, like, this is Hudson stuff. We don't have any of that information. Like,
there's like a website called Rarity Guide, and it'll tell you how rare certain games are relative to others, and you might be able to use that to determine, like compare that to known Blockbuster exclusives. Like, what was that NES fighting game?
There was Final Fight Guy for
Yeah,
SNES.
You could compare it to like Final Fight Guy and see if is it more rare than that? Is it less rare? Because I mean that's, and if it's less rare than that, then you know that it had more copies than Blockbusters.
Yeah, that would make sense. Yeah,
Maybe.
I think I know what you're talking about. Because it I remember seeing something like that, and it listed stuff like Bronchi, the Bronchiosaurus, as like one of the rarest games, and it's like stuff you would never expect to be like the Super Copa, I think, is another. It was a soccer game, like just a weird grab bag of like stuff is like actually rare, whereas stuff like like I want to say Mega Man 7 is like super expensive. It's like $150 because it's quote unquote rare, whereas
Earthbound.
Earthbound, God. Ugh.
I mean, Earthbound sold 140,000 copies in the West. Compare that with Soul Blazer, only sold 70,000 copies in the West.
Yeah.
And which one's more expensive?
Yeah.
Exactly.
And by the way, Earthbound released on the Super Nintendo Classic. It's been available on like every virtual console, all these different platforms, and that it's the cart is still a status symbol. That's all it is. Like, we expect you to pay this much for this cartridge, and it's dumb. I can't stand that. But
on the bright side, the increase in price has been halted.
That's
think
true. Yeah.
I mentioned that it was like $150 when I made my review back in 2014, and the game is still about $140. 150. So
that's actually reassuring.
Yeah, that price fluctuation is actually more rare than the game.
I know, right?
Everything seems to be going up, so that's good to know.
Yeah.
So you do this weekly RPG news format thing. How did that come about, and what are some of your sources for gaming news?
Oh, so it came about mostly as a way to appease the YouTube algorithm. I mean, being totally honest, making a video every month or two does not curry favor with YouTube.
Yeah.
And you will drop off subscription feeds if you're not making weekly content. And there was a short while there, a couple years ago, where I first ended up losing my job and I decided to try to make a go of going at YouTube full time. And one of the ways that I could do that, because I was like, I'm almost to a point where I might be able to maybe able to pull it off for a while and maybe get that momentum going.
Mhm.
So that was a huge part of that. And that's how I started making weekly videos. And also, I just always wanted to be able to keep up with RPG news and understand what was coming down the pipeline. And I never had been prior to that. I was completely uninformed going into it, and I was like, well, this is going to kill two birds with one stone. It's both going to, make videos for people to watch, and also it's going to keep me up to date, which is, pretty nice.
Works out pretty well. Yeah.
Yeah. So that was the original intent behind it, and since then I think I've gotten more passionate about being able to do it and do it well. But at first it was definitely just a, hey, YouTube, don't forget about me sort of thing.
Totally understandable. What websites do you use for news? Are you just on Twitter a lot, or Reddit?
It's Twitter. It's a lot of Reddit. And a lot of the news that I get comes from like Silicon Era, also from RPGfan.com, RPGsite.net. It's a lot of different sources depending on who's got what, and I just kind of pick out whatever sounds interesting for the update. Basically, anything that sounds like it would keep my interest for a few minutes, then it goes in, and I'll have something to say about it. But sometimes there's not really a whole lot going on. With the start of COVID-19, there was a whole lot of not anything happening going on. So.
Is there anything in particular you're looking forward to the most?
Cyberpunk 2077 is the first thing that comes to mind, mostly because a lot of the other things that I've been looking forward to are already out.
Sure, yeah.
Xenoblade remake, the Trials of Mana remake, the Final Fantasy VII remake. By the way, this is the year of the RPG remake. But Cyberpunk 2077, I think, is probably the big one that I've been watching the longest. And I've actually never played a CD Projekt Red game. I feel like I really ought to have by this point, but it looks like it's going to fill in that hole. I feel like I've got this Bethesda-shaped hole in my heart now, with them preoccupied with Fallout 76, and I think Cyberpunk is going to probably fill that nicely.
Yeah, I love their stuff. The Witcher 3 is probably the only thing that I've played from them, and that's just amazing in my opinion. So I'm looking forward to Cyberpunk as well.
Yeah, I would really like to get into The Witcher, but for some reason I just haven't had an opportunity to make that happen yet.
Even the show, I have not. Well, I have played a little bit of the second game and the third game, long time ago, but the show on Netflix is well worth it. It's super entertaining. It's really well done, really well made. It's funny.
I've heard nothing but good things about it.
Yeah,
it's based on the original books, right?
Original books, yeah.
So it's actually not even related to the games, because those are sort of like sequels to the books, as I understand it, right?
I think so. Yeah, I think you're right on that. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of overlap. You'll recognize like a lot of characters and set pieces. So I mean, it's not there's quite a bit of overlap. If you play the games, you'll like the show. Plus, Henry Cavill, he's just fun to look at, man. I'll say it. He's a handsome guy.
Damn,
good-looking fella.
Beefcake Central.
Totally. I mean, I got my wife interested in the show, and now we're both hooked on it. So
I just like his voice on that. Always doing that growly thing and sounds pissed off like Wolverine, back in the day.
Which actually adds a lot to the comedy when he's sort of aloof in a moment. You're like, that's so good. Yeah. But anyway, enough about me slobbering over Henry Cavill. I already do that on my other podcast.
Should we get to the listener questions?
Yeah, I did want to ask one other question here that we had written down.
Yeah.
I really wanted to hear what's the furthest you've gotten into a game, probably an RPG, before you were like, God, this sucks, I can't do it anymore, and you just quit? Is there one that comes to mind where you just had to throw in the towel?
No, I've forced myself to get through every single game.
That's commitment right there.
What a saint.
It's because this whole show was devised to help me get through my backlog. I kid you not. I mean, I mentioned that other stuff, but that was one of the reasons that I was like, I'm not going to review these games until I finish them, so I can mark them off my backlog and put them in the past. And then if I ever want to go back and play one again, I can just watch my review again and be happy. That was one of my things. So it's like, okay, this is my stipulation. Don't review a game until you can finish it. And as a result, God, I've suffered through some really bad experiences. One of the earliest that I recall that nearly broke my commitment to that was there's in Persona 3. Persona 3 is a fantastic game. Really, it defined how some of the genre would be from then on. But in the FES re-release, short for festival re-release on PlayStation 2, they included the second campaign that was like this 30-hour thing that was supposed to take place after the events of the original. And after playing like 100 hours of the original release of Persona 3 and going into FES, what they did to the characters was unforgivable, and the fights were so unfair. Basically, it took all this character progression, all these, because that's a huge thing about Persona is all the character progression within it. It's like that's what all these dating sim mechanics are all about. So you can see how people change from one, from the beginning to the end, and to see all of that just sort of like retconned in this thing was just, it was because, and I think a big part of that is that they can't assume that the player, because it doesn't import anything, it can't assume that the player has experienced all of these like character growth arcs. So instead what you're ending with is these people who have just kind of like reverted back to their original terrible moody states. And like it was so frustrating. And that was only the tip of it, because they also changed all of the battle and Persona 3 isn't exactly what I would call an easy RPG, but then in this extra thing, they're like, you know what, we need to up the ante. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna make all the enemies have one weakness, but we're also gonna give them all of the ability to dodge that specific weakness.
Oh, great.
So in the end, it was just so much RNG that whether or not you could actually defeat a boss fight had more to do with your ability to overcome that RNG god, just, and if you failed, you just got to roll the dice again and play it all over again.
Random. Yeah. It's ridiculous. Yeah. I feel your pain on that. Yeah. That's,
I'm sorry. I'm getting all,
I can see that. You're getting flustered.
Yeah.
I'm getting all worked up over this.
Yeah, for those at home, we can actually see Derek, and his hands are above his head, and he's waving them around like a crazy person. So he's excited.
He's smashing furniture. He's throwing stuff. So we should probably get to some listener questions and get off this Persona 3 stuff, man.
Yeah, let's do it.
So our first one is from Joey, and Derek, you already mentioned this, but if there was a game you could go back to and experience for the first time, what would it be?
Gosh, I know that I spoke about this hyperbolically earlier.
Hyperbolically, yeah.
But actually, that's a really big question.
Yes.
Man,
Joey's out here like just throwing haymakers. I mean, he's not messing around.
Good question, Joey.
Good question, Joey.
It is a solid question. Good job, Joey. Okay, so I would like to say Earthbound. I don't know if I can actually say that, though, because I wonder if I would still... Oh, man. Like, this has a lot to do with the logistics of how this works, because...
Yeah, I was going to say, I think we need more specifics here, more details, because are we playing this for the first time in 2020? Or are we playing this for the first time when we first played it?
Because Earthbound was the first RPG that turned me on to the genre.
Yes. Yeah.
And if not for that, like we're talking about like life-altering sorts of like, butterfly effects here.
Yes.
So I'm assuming it's just the ability to turn off that memory for a while playing the game. And I'll say Earthbound would be really great to go back and experience that again for the first time. without all of the hype and without all of the, all of the baggage that comes with playing these giant games now that carry so much, reputation, that would be really good to go back and experience again, because it is the game that first turned me on to the genre, and it is also so unique in that it takes place in a somewhat modern era and has some really great humor to the way that people speak, and the even though it's still basically a Dragon Quest clone, it has that unique rolling counter for hit points and such.
Yeah, and that's its own, those stupid exploding trees, man. They kill you every time. And then I've had that happen where my life rolls down to 2 before it's those trees. I get them in my nightmares.
Oh, and the mechanic where the enemies will actually run away from you when you get strong enough, that needs to be...
that's perfect.
That needs to be in more games. That right
absolutely. It's no more of this random battle grinding, even though, I like New Game Plus, Chrono Trigger, like you're just destroying these goblins with Luminaire. It's like you're just doing it for fun because you can't avoid these battles. So yeah, that does need to be in more games for sure.
Just turning them into dust.
Good answer. I just played Earthbound for the first time last year, and I really enjoyed it. I thought it was the humor in it still holds up, and it's beautiful to look at, all the pastels. So good answer.
I'm glad to hear that you still enjoyed it, because a lot of people have this experience where I've heard they've not enjoyed it because it had such a reputation that set their expectations on such a high level that there was no way that it could live up to it.
Yeah.
So I'm glad to hear that you enjoyed it.
Yeah, I mean, it helped that I actually did pay for the cartridge. So some of that's probably just cost justification. But no, I really did enjoy it. I was actually kind of blown away by it, and I was like, I get it. When I was playing it, I was like, I get why people like this. And this question, Joey, I think it's hard for me not to answer it with just like my favorite game. Like, who wouldn't want to go back and experience their favorite game again for the first time? So I won't do that. It would be Legend of Zelda. I wish I could just go back to being 5 years old and playing that with my dad and learning, figuring out all the puzzles and secrets. But I think a better answer, really, if I did a little spin to it, is a game that I played, again, within the last 4 or 5 years that I wish I had played at the time that it was hot, and that's Super Metroid. I didn't grow up with a Super Nintendo. I was a Sega Genesis kid, and I was always kind of jealous and curious of the kids that had the Super Metroid. It was all the hubbub, as we mentioned earlier, is a word. And I was like, that seems like a really fun time. People are liking it, and I liked the original Metroid. I didn't beat that until later in life, but I had played it. And man, when I played Super Metroid even a few years ago, I was like, damn, this game is just so amazing. I just love everything about it, and I really wish that I could have experienced that at the time that it was a big deal. Of course, playing it, in 2017 or whenever I played it, it's like, cool guys, hey, anybody want to talk to me about Super Metroid? I just beat it, and they're like, no, go away. I have some Bill Clinton jokes if anybody wants to hear them.
Some Al Gore material right here.
Yeah,
like, man, isn't that Al Gore a boring fellow?
There's just something about playing a big game in its prime that I think is kind of not something we think about, but it is a thing.
I was gonna say, in light of that, man, I wish I could go do the exact same thing with Final Fantasy VII, because
there you go.
I didn't play that until years and years after it came out, and it has such a huge impact on so many people who experienced it when it first came out, and I feel envious of people who got to experience it before it just looked like blocks.
Oh yeah, that's a good point.
Pretty rough now. Yeah, it's I played through that was it 2016 or 2017, a few years ago, and it's hard to get over it, and it's a lot of those like perspective shots where you hit the select button and you've got like a tiny little arrow at the other side of this giant matte painting, and you got to kind of wiggle your way around. It's like, oh man, this is not a good look. Final Fantasy VII. This has not held up all that well. But it can't be overstated how huge that was. And Super Metroid, I remember renting that around the time it got out. And what struck me about that game when I first played it as a kid was the music. It was the first time like music really made a huge it's like, wow, game soundtracks are like movie soundtracks now. Like the music here is unbelievable. Like it's so creepy. Like when you get to the wrecked ship, or when you first, even at the very beginning of the game, when you first see all the aliens crawling all over everything, and that music hits, and it's like, oh god, it's legitimately like frightening. So yeah, I'm all aboard that pick. I don't even know what I would pick. I can be boring and say Chrono Trigger because that was such an awesome experience. That was one of those games where you sit down to play it and it feels like you're playing it for 20 minutes and it's like 4.5 hours later. Like, holy crap! Like I've been sitting here that long. Like, doesn't feel like it. But I will say Contra 3 because that game is like playing that game for the first time is like getting hit with a concrete cinder block to the face. Because it just hits you right away with the the music. You're firing 80 gazillion bullets in 10 seconds, and you got all these power-ups. You've got stuff everywhere. You've got explosions. You've got these crazy mini-bosses. And yeah, that and then to piggyback off of what you guys were saying, I would have wanted to go back and play Gunstar Heroes when that first came out.
Oh,
because that would have been totally up my alley, because that's basically just Contra 3 but faster and more cooler weapons and cooler bosses, and that game is unbelievable. I played that, I think, for the first time sometime in my tech school days, but I was like, holy crap, where's this game been all my life? And yeah, that would be my pick, I think.
Yeah, good answer. I love Gunstar Heroes. It might be my favorite Genesis game, actually.
I would pick it as the best Genesis game if I had to make like a top 10 list or whatever. I don't think anything beats that game.
That's it. Then it's DrunkFriend gospel now. That's it. That's DrunkFriend agrees.
Hallelujah.
So one more question here. This one, is this actually the account name, Out of Context, or is that just a note? Is Out of Context
That's his name.
person?
That's the name they put.
Okay. All right. So this question is from Out
I
of
didn't
Context.
even think of that till you brought it up.
I was like, Out of Context. Is this a question about like your favorite underwear brand? Or
Yeah,
something?
that's a stage direction. We're gonna start putting those on our sheet.
Okay. Out of Context asks, what games would you put on a modded Super NES Classic if you weren't going to expand the memory? Which games best capture that era?
So I think what he means by that is like you can't just add whatever you want. You have to like remove something.
Right, you can't like add them all. You can't just do that cop out. Yeah,
you can't add them all. Maybe not remove something, but you can't add any extra memory. So you can add, only, I don't know how much it would hold. I haven't hacked mine, but you can only add let's say just say you can only add like a handful of games.
Well, if that were the case, I think we mentioned it earlier. I wouldn't mind some of those Quintet games popping on there. I'm a really huge fan of Soul Blazer. Really wish we could have played Terra Enigma back in the day, and certainly I can now. But it would be cool to do it on the SNES Classic. And I guess Illusion of Gaia would be the other one. Yeah, I think that'd be a good little handful of games to pop on there.
ActRaiser 2.
Oh yeah,
and I mean the first ActRaiser, not ActRaiser.
Yeah, definitely not ActRaiser 2.
ActRaiser 2 sucks.
Yeah.
Well, it doesn't suck. I just don't like it.
Definitely, I think Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles in Time.
Yes.
That pretty much, I mean, when I was a kid, that defined what that console was for me. My friend had that growing up, and I didn't. And Turtles in Time, that was it. That was the Turtles in Time console.
Yeah, well put. I think for me, I'm turning around and looking at my games right now. I think I was really disappointed not to see a shoot 'em up on there. I know the Super Nintendo isn't known for shoot 'em ups, but come on, put Axelay on there, put R-Type 3.
It was Gradius, I guess.
Yeah,
Phalanx.
that game. Phalanx for the old guy, yes. That'd be amazing. Just for the artwork alone. You're scrolling through, you got Yoshi's Island, you
got some old man, some old pervert with a banjo.
Got this crazy guy on his front porch. He's got a shotgun stacked up behind him, too.
Yeah, I mean, it wouldn't be a shoot 'em up without the shotgun, so.
Maybe UN Squadron.
Yeah,
UN Squadron. Yeah, there you go.
That's another super fun one. I guess I just would have wanted to see more games that never came out in the U.S., like Terra Enigma. More Japan-only stuff like the other Super Bomberman games, like Super Bomberman 3 and 4. Yeah, stuff like that. Oh, there's a game series in Japan called the Great Battle series, and it stars SD versions of guys like Ultraman and who else is involved in that? I don't remember their names, but like Gundam is one of them too, and it just keeps expanding to like this like crazy universe of guys. And it's made by some of the same people that were on the same team that were behind Mega Man. And so the 4th and 5th games of that series are just awesome. You don't need any sort of English translation patches. You don't need to do anything. You can just play them. So I just wish there was like more of a spectrum, I guess, of stuff, rather than just like, here's all the Nintendo franchises. Yay.
Yeah, the hard cutoff of 25 games just seems semi-arbitrary. Like, I think, especially given the capabilities, those games that takes up like less than a kilobyte. I mean, not I'm embellishing a little bit, but I mean there's space in there for more stuff. Put it on there. I know that there's licensing issues and all that stuff, but even with the within Nintendo franchises, there's still more in there. I mean, you already listed a couple. So
what about stuff like Pilot Wings and SimCity?
Yeah,
like, even those would be nice too. I love SimCity just for the music and just the chill vibes. And then having the green-haired guy come and yell at you about traffic, and
there you go.
Yeah, this is always fun.
And you've already got Mega Man X in there. There's other Mega Man games on the system.
Sure.
You could put the sequels in there. Yeah.
Yeah, X2 is awesome. Love X2.
Well, we'll quit beating up Nintendo for their decisions on this, but that was a good question out of context. We appreciate that. And if anyone has a question, where all can they submit them, Alex, out of curiosity?
They can submit them at drunkfriendpodcast@gmail.com.
You can do that. Yeah, there.
Yes.
The email is the best way. Okay. Well, I guess that about does it for an episode. Derek, thanks so much for joining us, man. It was a lot of fun. It was cool to talk with you and get to know a little bit more about your channel, how it started, and I think the most interesting thing to come out of this is that you actually do finish all of those freaking games. That's amazing.
Well,
that's crazy.
Thanks, guys. I really appreciate you having me on here. It's been a blast to just hang out with you guys, and yeah, thanks for having me on. It's been great.
Cool. Yeah, thanks for being game.
Yeah. Is there, of course you have the YouTube channel. Where else can people track you down? Do you do Twitter? I know you do Twitch.
Yeah, that's basically it. I YouTube, Twitch, those are the main things. And I also have a Twitter account that I sometimes post from, but really it's just there because I've been told I should.
There you go. All right. Well, guys, that's been another Drunk Friend podcast. Be sure to check out polykill.com to find more podcasts like this one. And once again, as Alex alluded to earlier, you can reach out to us at drunkfriendpodcast@gmail.com if you have any questions or comments.
If you'd simply like to help out the show, remember to rate and review us wherever you listen.
Specifically iTunes. That's the big one. But wherever, but specifically iTunes.
It really is the big one. Like, it's like there's about 80 gazillion podcast things, and iTunes is like 30% of the market, apparently. So
yeah, it's pretty huge.
You iTunes folks, do us a solid, will ya?
Please. We're on Twitter as well. I'm at Trav Plays Games. Alex is, of course, at SNES Drunk. And Derek, if you would like to plug that Twitter account that you seem sort of indifferent to, you're welcome to.
Oh, at SuperDerek YT.
Also, we want to give a shout out to Coolor for the podcast music. The song you heard is called Electric Star Bounce, and you can find a link to more of his music on the Buzzsprout podcast page.
All right, be sure to catch us all on YouTube, and thanks for listening.
And we hope you have a great rest of your day.